Welcome to the Soul Tribe Podcast. The Soul Tribe Podcast was created to help you navigate through the world of spirituality, wellness, and self-development in an easy, grounded, and relatable way. We break down everything from the Akashic Records, manifesting, spirituality, and so much more. We want to help expand your boundaries and bring the spiritual world to you in a fun and easy way. Get ready to be inspired with tips, tools, and easy to digest information. Let's do this.
Hi everyone, and thanks for tuning in to the Soul Tribe Podcast. Today we wanted to do an episode talking about the things that we've seen already happening in 2020. We thought that there was a lot of, drama and chaos and, the fires and the sicknesses and all these things that we're seeing that us and many other people at some point become concerned about it. And we thought it would be a good idea to kind of channel in the Akashic Records of the Soul Tribe Podcast, ask the masters and the beings of light to see what they have to say about this. Maybe they can inform us and make us understand or calm us down. Whatever messages we receive, we're just going to channel them through. And hopefully it's messages that will be healing to us and to everyone that's listening. We also thought it was a really good idea because not only are we aware of the issues, but we referred back to the episode that we did the interview with Kristos and Foster, and they had both discussed how it wasn't going to be easy, that it was they felt like it was a positive change, but that it wasn't going to be an easy one, right? Nothing good comes of like an easy process, obviously. And they also talked about fires and flooding and how that's part of the purification. And we thought, well, that's really interesting how they discussed that and that we see it happening already. So hopefully we'll get more clarity on all this and we'll all kind of tune into the universe and what the masters have to say.
So we're going to ask a few questions. We'll say them out loud so you guys have the actual question that we're putting out there for the Akashic Records. And then we'll both channel information like we did in a previous episode with channeled messages. And I think this episode is important because I feel like there's a lot of fear and there's a lot of things and like energy around all these things that are kind of bringing fear and ego forward. And I think and I believe that a lot of it is not for us to fear it, but for us to change and for us to move forward in a different way. So we thought it'd be interesting to channel the information to see what came through, not only for you guys, but also for ourselves, because we're very curious. And that's what the Akashic Records are about, right? Getting answers and understanding why things are happening and getting a better perspective so we can make better decisions. So yeah, Lucia, if you want to start with the first question.
I was holding back. I was like waiting for you to finish. So the first thing is they wanted to kind of greet everybody and welcome them back to the Soul Tribe Podcast, the Akashic Records reading. They're saying that we're here doing this episode on purpose, that it wasn't actually our brilliant idea, that once again, this is kind of a push that the masters gave Lorena and I to get information out. And what needs to be remembered is that they have a lot of forms of channels open around the world. We're just one of those little channels, and there's a bunch of people around the world that are channeling information and things to help calm others down or help us individuals understand why things happen. And so this is just one more channel that they're using to get information out there to help us understand that this is not all devastation and death, and we're not all gonna like disappear and it's like the end of an era or the end of life as we know it. There's going to be changes. They have to be done, and it's for our greater good. So it's a positive, even though as our human, and the masters say it like this, the human brain sees things as tragedy and in like a fear-based way of seeing it. They're saying that it's the needed chaos before the grand order. So they're giving me the word the grand order. And so before a new order can take place, and this message I've been channeling for like ever since they gave us the idea of doing this episode, they kept telling me chaos has to happen before order comes in. And so now that I'm tapped into the Akashic Records of the Soul Tribe Podcast, they're giving me the word the grand order. which means that they're trying to align us more with our true selves and what we really are, more than we were before. And so it's part of the progress that's needed, because even though it doesn't seem like progress, the masters say, it is progress. We're breaking down barriers. We're cleaning out energies and things that are no longer of use to the planet Earth and to the higher consciousness that we all are as humans, to put in a new grand order that will allow us all to be more aligned with ourselves. At some point they want, and they're giving me the time frame from like now to 30 years. In 30 years, what they're trying to project to me is that there's going to be more than half of those beings that are incarnated in 30 years that are still living on Earth are going to be channelers. Like, they're looking for that. That's what they're striving for. So we're all going to be, half of us will be completely connected with what we really are, receiving intuitive messages and interpreting things that we feel better and understanding where it's coming from. And the other half will be concentrated more on maybe something more outside of the field of intuition, but more kind of scientific, or investigating, or helping healers that receive small messages to help heal, but they're not going to be the grand channelers that they want half of the universe to be from now to in 30 years.
It's about awakening the consciousness. What I kept seeing while you were speaking was that, in fact, it is not a tragedy. These things are happening for a reason, and they're happening for us to wake up and rebuild. We need to rebuild what has been kind of brought down by humans. And there's no time for waiting. There's no time for us to doubt ourselves or for us to hold back on things. We need to move forward. We need to be certain of what we're doing, and we need to be able to open ourselves up to this collective consciousness and to the awakening of everybody, because this is the time. 2020 is for people to awaken, to wake up to their powers, to wake up to what we're doing to planet Earth, to what we've become, that we've become not in every way maybe what we want to become. We've become things that we're expected to become, and that we need to change that. And it's our time to change. And that's why all these things are being thrown at us. These very scary things, like these huge fires, flooding, the fire in the water, like Foster was saying, is in fact going to keep happening during this year, and they're repeating that. So it's not for us to fear, it's for us to shift our way of seeing and believing things, and to move forward in a different way, because we're here to wake up. We're not here to sleepwalk through life, and we're not here to ignore what's happening. And the fact that all these things that are happening only bring us together. So they want us to see that. What happens when there's a fire? Everyone around the world is donating money. They're helping each other. They're bringing help. They're bringing people together. And that's what they want us to do. They want us to come together. Not only, like, it's not really physically, but it's as a collective consciousness. We all need to be there for each other. And that means not kind of like stifling your powers or ignoring your intuition or ignoring what's happening. It's the total opposite. It's waking up.
And so you're talking about the fires, and you're talking about how it unites everybody. But at the same time, I was internally thinking, while you were talking about that, I was internally thinking, so are the fires being made happen by something bigger than ourselves? Are they somehow making this ignite? Like, I was thinking about it. I wasn't really asking the question, but I was thinking about it. And right away, the information I got was they're looking for us to start doing a cleansing process, and they're looking for us to, like you had said, unite. And so what do they do as ascended masters? What do they do to help create that? They look for tendencies that it would be easy to break into. And that's how they describe it, to like break into. So there's conditions that humans have created on Earth that allow for an easy fire to start. It sounds like a really bad way of saying it, but it's an easier wake up call for them to make happen. It's easier than something else. I don't know if you understand what I'm saying, Law. Does that make sense to you? I
think so. Yeah. It's like automatic. You don't think twice, right?
It's like a human condition that's I want to say another way, but they keep telling me human condition. It's like a human condition, the way we are and the way we're
Programmed,
but at the same time, the way we're utilizing the earth and all the things around us, it creates this perfect situation of a chaos. So they're helping it happen. It was something that might have not happened, could have happened, but might have not happened, but they're helping it happen to help us start a cleansing process and create that chaos for the new order. So they're using the breaks in the earth, or the parts of earth that are more, what's the word in Spanish? I keep saying it in Spanish, débil, weaker.
Weak, yeah.
They're looking for like the cracks in earth, the weaker parts, and they're tapping into that to help ignite something that will be the created wake up call. And so these are the fires, for example, and we're talking about Australia now, right? Those are the fires. That was one of the weaknesses that they found that were going to be easy to tap into. So it's not actually complete human error. It's human error towards the way we're dealing with our environment and treating our environment, but it's them helping to ignite that situation, pushing it for it to happen so that we can learn from it and we can create the chaos before the grand new order.
And I keep getting the word rebuild come up. And we're rebuilding. Basically, it's like everything's crumbling down in a way, or things are being destroyed in certain areas, so we can rebuild it, but rebuild it together and rebuild it so that it can be better and that it can work better and that it can work better in harmony, basically. But when you asked about the fires, what I got is, no, these aren't created on purpose. These are created because we need them. These are in part things that are happening for us to wake up, and there are no other ways to wake up at this moment. It is what it is what it is. They're saying it is how it needs to be, and I kept feeling called to talk about the earthquake, because I live in the Cayman Islands and we had an earthquake the other day here, which was literally shook the ground under our feet. We all felt dizzy. We all felt like literally someone had like slipped a rug under our feet, and it was like, or we were like shaking. Everyone in the buildings all walked outside and everyone was talking to each other. Everyone was like talking about their experience and how people united through that experience. And that's what happens with they're saying tragedies, but it could be, there was no tragedy here, really. Nothing happened. No one died. But it's a catastrophe. It's something huge. It's something you can't ignore. It has to be very in your face and like out there for you to even recognize it, because we're so numb. We're all numb to everything that's happening around us. So it's their only way for us to it's like they're grabbing you by your shoulders and shaking you. It's like, wake up, do something. You can't ignore this anymore. Like, we need to do something about everything.
They actually, while you were talking about that, they were showing me another thing that they in the past considered doing, and they're kind of laughing about it. Like, the way I see it is that I'm like laughing about it, but they're showing me like almost like it was a cable, and they were cutting off the communication that we all use, which is like the internet and blah 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 and all that stuff, right? So they're showing me that if they considered at one point, it was like somewhat like a discussion through the grandmasters to like cut the cord of the connection for like a week or something. And that it would be this like severe thing for us, because we would all lose communication, but we would end up connecting very profoundly with those that are closest to us physically. And they said that that's why they had discussed it at some point, and they ended up considering that it wasn't a good idea, at least for now, but that it was something that was discussed because it would actually create profound connection with those that are physically near you, which is what we're lacking right now, is what they're saying. We're very connected with those that might not be physically next to us, but we're very disconnected with those that are, closest to us, because we're too busy connecting via like the internet or the phone, or all those things that connect, to help connect us, but help us also disconnect from those that are closest to us.
Yeah, I agree.
So that was the first question. Yeah. We were going to ask about the fires and if it was a human error or if it was part of like some earthly process. So that was the first question we were going to hit on. The other question we wanted to ask was, I wanted to ask about this, which is like how the flus and the sicknesses are getting worse. And obviously part of my question is about the virus that currently is hitting China, the coronavirus, right? So they seem to. It's still a flu, right? It's a virus, and it seems to be very severe. So I wanted to ask, what can we know? What should we know? What can we know about this situation with the viruses and the sicknesses getting stronger and kind of overtaking our bodies?
What comes up immediately for me is it's showing us our weaknesses. It's our weak points. It's because it doesn't necessarily have to be physical, but this is just in a physical manifestation of that. But it's, where are you weak? Where are you not listening to yourself? So it kind of makes you reflect on, oh, what if I got that? What if I got sick? Would I get sick? Am I taking care of myself? Am I doing the right things? What would happen if I die tomorrow from this? Or what if my loved ones would die from this? It's like, where are my weaknesses in every aspect of my life? From what I'm doing physically, what I'm doing emotionally with my body. Am I spiritually connected? Am I tapping into myself? Am I living my true essence? Am I living the life I want to live? And it kind of makes you question everything. But more so, it isn't so much about the flu, they're saying. It's more about our bodies and what we're doing with our lives and how we're all connected, because this flu is no longer just in China. This flu has gone across the world now. It's in a bunch of countries, and they obviously have somehow contained it in some places, but it's like showing us that there's no way to hold it back, because we're so global, we're so connected that it'll spread so quickly, and it'll go from one point to the next in 24 hours. And bam, it's done. And that's to show how we can all connect, but we're not connecting in the right way. We're connecting by a virus. There needs to be a different connection. It needs to connect with the power of love, of spirituality, of everything else, of giving back to people. It's this whole other shift that we need to make, and it's showing us that weakness.
So I get a few different things. The first thing I want to kind of give a picture of is they're showing me what happens when there's a war, right? When there's a war going on in a country, or there's a lot of internal fighting in a country, you'll get another country jumping in to help the fight towards the side that they believe in the most, right? So that country will jump in and help that country out, the other country out that's having the internal issues. So we get that at war times. We get the union of two countries fighting for the same cause, or trying to protect, those that are internally in there that they believe deserve the protection. But these are two countries coming together to do it together. And yet what I'm seeing here is the lack of union with other countries, because everyone's out to save themselves. Everyone's out to protect themselves. And the whole point of this sickness is in part a wake-up call. You kind of pointed out, you said it in different words, but the whole point of this is some sort of wake-up call. And what the masters had expected to happen was other countries jumping in to help protect where it started, and that didn't happen. And I see two problems here. I see a lack of communication from where it began. So it almost looks like it looks like they're going it's going under something, under a rug. It's almost like when you see in those old movies where someone would break something and they just slide it under the rug. That's kind of how they're showing it to me. It was hidden. It was hidden when it was originally found out. There was no communication. And then on top of it being hidden from the beginning, where it could have been properly contained, I don't have the union that the masters expected. The masters expected a bunch of countries to get together with this one country and work on this issue internally, not because they wanted to protect their countries, but because they wanted to help other human beings. This is something that can happen anywhere. It could start anywhere. And so that's what they're kind of disappointed they didn't get to see, that they expected or wanted to see, a union of countries in protection of human beings, period. I don't care the nationality. They cared about it being human beings. So that's one of the aspects of what I'm getting. But then totally aside from that, there's kind of two issues I have with those that are being hit with it, right? One is there was a frequency change. The frequency on Earth was nudged up a tiny bit, but it's so little, you can't really feel it, but the body's we can't consciously totally feel it, but our bodies can actually feel it. And so our bodies are going through this adjustment phase where either my body's going to adapt to it easily. Some people adapt right away to it, and they have no problems. Their body has no problems. We have those that take longer to adjust, and then we have those bodies that don't adjust at all. And what ends up happening is their defense mechanism breaks down, and then sicknesses leak in. So that's kind of one of the aspects I'm getting. But then on top of that, I have another aspect, which is those bodies that don't believe in anything higher than themselves. They don't connect, or they don't believe in connecting with anything. They don't believe they're anything more than just bones and blood and flesh. And now they're finding themselves surrounded by a higher frequency, and if they're incapable of starting to adjust it doesn't have to be fast, like even adjusting very slowly and accepting new ideas and new perspectives, if those individuals aren't able to do that, then they might also find themselves staying on a low frequency, and then their immune system in a way won't be able to take the new frequency, and again, sicknesses can leak in.
Yeah. I see that as well. That's great perspective, though. That's a good message.
The feeling I get about the whole countries not jumping in, because I see what I'm seeing is countries protecting their own borders, their own boundaries, and their own people, and I don't see those countries kind of because what they make me feel like I want to see is 10 or more countries should have jumped right in, gone there right away, sent their best people for that task, to help contain it, to help save these people, not thinking about themselves, just thinking about what if our people were going through this? Wouldn't we love the assistance of all these countries? And so I feel the feeling of almost disappointment, because they were expecting something like that to happen, and it didn't.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And as well, I think what I just got was it's supposed to spread. Because that's the only way. If it were only to happen in one place, no one would pay attention to it. So it has to spread. It has to somehow leak out for people to make it like this thing that's on everyone's radar, basically, and everyone can see it, and everyone can feel it, and everyone sees this as like a threat in a way. And it doesn't necessarily have to be a threat for everybody, but it needs to be there. People need to feel it, need to vibrate on it and understand it in order to change, because we're not doing the things that we need to do, and we're not moving forward in the way we need to move forward. So this is the only way to do it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So this doesn't only go, because we were talking about frequencies and sicknesses. This doesn't, when they speak about that they're not just speaking about that one virus. They're speaking about other sicknesses and viruses. And funny enough, I've been getting sick a lot too. And this seems to be, they seem to be describing to me something that I've been going through. So I think I'm going through it, but just with other flus. It's the frequency change, and my body's like super feeling it. And I'm finding it really hard to adapt to the energy change.
Yeah. I mean, some people might get sick because they're not adjusting to it, but then there's a whole other level to it with what is the coronavirus. The coronavirus, I see that as something completely different. For example, I see that as an awakening, a global awakening of like things spreading and people all being connected, and us not listening to the messages. So this is like, here it is. It's right in your face. It's in the news. It's everywhere. You can't ignore it. People are scared. People are paying attention, and there's no way around it. Some of those individuals also agreed to leave Earth earlier than expected. So there was we connect with our masters and guides and beings of light when we're sleeping. We do astral traveling, right? And we connect, and our soul might make a new decision. Our soul might decide, you know what, this is what's best for me, because this is what I was coming here to learn on Earth, but now Earth is kind of changing, and I don't really, my previous plans don't really fit into this new panorama kind of thing. So some of them are deciding to leave because of that. There's a very small percentage are because of that. Another percentage already had pre-planned to leave Earth earlier. And so this is the way they ended up deciding to go. And others were kind of hit with it in a surprising way, but because they had agreed to help the wake-up call of Earth. So they're actually getting a lot. Those individuals that did decide, their souls that decided last minute, I'm going to be part of those that leave,
to create this wake-up call, when they do decide to go, they left their bodies. They've abandoned a body that they've created a life for and life with, and they created bonds with individuals and soulmates and with their soul tribes on Earth. And now they've abandoned that life earlier than previously planned. And so what they're getting really is higher. They're getting more knowledge. So they're going to go a little bit higher from like the knowledge level of what is the evolutionary like kind of ladder on the other side. That's the best way I can describe it, because it's not really a ladder, but it's like we learn and we progress and we expand. So the more we learn and the more we give of our own selves in our lives, the more we expand. And so these individuals that are deciding last minute to go have managed to expand a lot. They've gained a lot as a soul just by saying, yes, you know what, I will help others wake up by leaving.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So that was, okay, that was a sickness question. And then we also wanted to ask, is there more chaos, or is it kind of human perspective where we see more things going on? We're more attentive. The first thing I get is we're more attentive and we're kind of like, the way I see it is looking sideways, like the peripheral, like looking this way and this way. Like I'm looking more. So there's also an aspect of me searching for stuff that's like happening, going, what's this over here? What's this over here? And so I'm like paying more attention, which means I'm going to see more things. That's part of it. But at the same time, there are parts that are chaos that's going to help with the new order.
Mm-hmm. I see, like when you were saying the peripheral, what came up for me was it's like we're searching for something to happen too, as humans. It's like we want, some of us subconsciously and within our soul contracts are looking for these wake-up calls. So it's like we look for this chaos, for something to happen for us to snap out of our like lull or our dull lives that we feel like we need to change something but we can't, or to wake up and feel spiritual, or to wake up and feel connected. But the chaos, I think part of it is a projection of humans, and another part is like it's there to wake us up, and it is chaos and it has to happen. Like, you know, the fires, like that's a very good example of what chaos is. There's only one way out of that, and it's banding together to help each other. And you can't do that on your own. One person can't fight that. It has to be a collective of people fighting towards stopping something, which is the fire in that case. But it could be even hatred. It could be stopping racism. It could be stopping anything. But we create that in a way so that we can. So when I say that, we create the chaos in a way for it to help us, if that makes sense.
Yeah. The example, I think it's a really good example. The vision I'm getting is they're showing me like a child. So we are us, everybody that's on Earth now is this child that I'm describing. So there's this child, and this child every day wakes up at the same time, is given the same meals, and plays with the same toy, and watches the same TV, and goes to sleep at the same time in the same bed, and has the same day every day. What is that child going to learn? Nothing. It's minimum. Yeah. It's not going to progress emotionally. The child's not going to progress intellectually. And there's no other way for this child to advance if it's going to have the same routine every day. Grab that same child and make the child go through something negative for one of those days. The child will never be the same again. He will appreciate more every day the breakfast he was given. He's going to appreciate more the parents that he has by his side. He's going to appreciate this amazing day. And this is the same. We're that child. If we're going to have this like, they kept talking about like 2020 being this new frequency and us connecting more and being more intuitive and being, better with ourselves and in our own path. It's a great concept. But unless that people are, you grab the person, you're shaken. Unless that person, those that don't want to wake up, they're not shook, then they can't wake up to it. So there's a lot of individuals that need to have that shake happen to them. That child needs to have a different kind of day, and it needs to be negatively oriented so that I have gratitude and I start connecting with something that's more above who I really am or who I really believe I am. So that's what it is really. It's a most basic way of learning, creating a semi moment of chaos and the unknowing of my future, or the unknowing of many people's future, that wakes you up. That wakes you up, and it makes you more appreciative, more grateful, and you resent things and people around you less.
At a smaller scale, that would be your personal chaos. So the personal chaos could be a breakup, having to move, being evicted from your house, I don't know, losing your job, having a health issue yourself, but not this global health issue, right? It might be getting sick. That's all chaos as well. It's there to wake you up and to show you something different and for you to like change something in your life, basically. That's what they're saying. You have to change something because there's a reason whatever's happening or that you need to learn. The same thing with this major chaos, which are like fires, the virus, etc. That's chaos for us to grow, learn, and come together. And your personal chaos is there for you to grow and learn as well, but at a micro level. It's a smaller level. But then we have these bigger chaoses happening for us to grow, like as a unity, if that makes sense. That's kind of what they're showing me.
Yeah. It's put in our path or in our peripheral for us to create more of a unity with those around us.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so then the last question we wanted to ask was, what can we expect for the remaining of 2020? What can we know, or what should we know that will help us better our lives, our health, and alignment? So the first thing is take into consideration that chaos is going to continue to happen. This isn't like tomorrow and it's done. Let's say that the virus ends and the fire is finished and that's it. No. Chaos is going to continue because the majority of those that need to be woken up aren't awake yet. So things that you can do to better your own life and those around you, help wake people up around you. Don't force it, but help. Like, for example, our way of helping is this podcast. Helping people around you wake up will help we don't need so many frequent chaotic moments like those that we were talking about before. So the better we all get at connecting and understanding what we really are, the better our lives will be, and the less chaos that is needed for the new order. But know that it's going to continue to happen, at least for now. And the best thing you can do for yourself is gratitude's the first word I keep getting. Be grateful that you have another opportunity to align yourself today. You're here on earth and you have this and this and this to be grateful for. So make sure to remember what those things that you are grateful for. And health-wise, and this is like they're focusing a lot on me, know that sometimes health can be a bit of an issue, and those are us, like you had said before, those are a bit of wake-up calls. And for me, in my case, my health is a wake-up call, and they're just trying to get me to align even more with what I've already been working on. And just know who you really are. Know that you're a soul that's having a human experience. Don't forget that you're a soul, because if we just go back to thinking that we're human and we just stay and live these like kind of human perspective lives, that's going to knock us off course. We need to get back on course again. So be true to what you really are and connect. If you're in a path and you're in a job that doesn't sync with you, or if you're in a relationship that doesn't sync with you, or you're living in a country or city that doesn't sync with you, and you feel it, that's your intuitive side saying, what are you doing here? You don't belong here. Let's get this moving. Let's get this going. Don't wait for the perfect situation to change that. Create the change that you need and believe that it could happen, because that's the only way you'll be able to manifest it. If you're going to sit around and wait for it to happen, it's highly probable that it won't happen, because part of your wake-up call is to get the ball rolling, get the movement going, and believe in your intuitive connection, because this year is about being more intuitive and being more aligned with listening to yourself.
The first thing that came to me was as well, like the chaos will continue, and the chaos will continue for our good, for the betterment of humanity, and for spiritual growth. So this spiritual growth is something we all need to lean into. We all need to go in that direction, because we need to all awaken. We're a lot of us have already been on this path for a while, or we're just getting on this path, and that we're in the right direction. And when they say spirituality, it's not religion, it's not anything like that. It's literally connecting to yourself and to the consciousness. And that, in essence, we are all just one. We are all one. We are all one energy. So when some of us are not connected, that affects us all. And that all of this chaos, everything's happening for us to wake up. And I think something you said, Lucia, that really kind of popped in and I started getting messages on was the trusting, the intuition. That's spirituality. The looking inward, the listening to yourself and discarding things that no longer serve you because you know they're not right for you, and trusting your intuition with those things and with listening to yourself. Because what happens, they're saying, when you don't listen to yourself, for example, when you know you don't feel well, but you still push past all of the work you need to do and, I have to go to work, I can't miss this deadline. It's like you're pushing past your limits, but not pushing past your limits in a good way. You're pushing past them in a very destructive way. So you make yourself sick. That's what they're talking about. Like, you need to know your limits, your boundaries, and you need to make sure you adhere to them and that others are adhering to them as well, so that you can align with yourself spiritually, intuitively, and grow. Because this year is all about growth. It's about growing. It's about getting rid of things that no longer serve us and growing and like rising, ascending, because there's no way for us to continue if we're not ascending. You're just going to be pushed down, and we're not going to feel well. We're not going to feel well if we don't ascend. We need to listen to ourselves.
Well said. Yeah. I think that wraps up all the questions we have, unless there's something else that you want to ask. But I think that we covered most of what we really wanted to get out there.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be like a quick kind of episode where we could just channel the information, because I think we're all very curious about 2020, but not in the way that we might have channeled it before. And we'll definitely stick in the clip with that we had the messages from like Kristos and Foster, because they have their own perspective on it, and I think it's very interesting. But yeah, I think it was just needed. I don't know. I felt it. You felt it. And we think that for whatever reason, you guys need this. So we went ahead and did it. And we hope it does serve you in some way. We are just going to pop in the audio now from episode 18, where Kristos and Foster have their predictions for 2020. Please go back and listen to that episode. It's a really good episode, and there's so much info in there, from ayahuasca to shamanism to spirituality. But in this section, we basically wanted to show you the difference that comes through the Akashic Records for us and what comes through for them. And it's super interesting how some things tie in together, and some of the information we got. We obviously asked different questions, but we wanted to get specific answers on specific topics. But I think it all ties in together really nicely, so enjoy. I think one thing that we are really curious about is, it's almost 2020. It's right around the corner. And I know that there's a lot of energetic shifts happening right now, and changes, a collective shift, I guess you'd call it. And Lucia's channeled some information through the Akashic Records, and I'd be curious to know what your take on what's coming for 2020 and what people can really expect, really.
Well, I think that 2020, first of all, like every decade that ends, we are now in 2019. It's the last 9 of the decade. The 9 is always the end. And this is also what you hear very often in the apocalyptic scriptures, that every time when there's a change in the decades, somebody, I'm surprised they haven't showed up yet, somebody will show up and declare the end of the world. 2020 is interesting because the letter, or the number 20, the 0 is not a number. 0 is an energy symbol. And so 2020, the number 20 in numerology, especially in Kabbalah, in many mystical scriptures, is described as the one with the highest ethic. That means people who have a 20 in their birth date, for example, or as a result, or the number 20 in general, demands to live by the highest principles, by the highest moral code. And if you have a 2020, now double that concept. So I do think that we will go through a period of transparency for the next 2 years, actually. And a revelation of sort will take place, and already begins that we see through certain messages and certain manipulations, and that more and more people, I know it doesn't look like it at the moment, but that the majority on this planet are people who are decent and good and spiritual and holistic to some degree, and that it's a unstoppable trend that will go on. I think that a lot of people will experience this change of the year through the economy and the manipulations of the economy, the news, of course, the confusion of the news, the internet, as nice as it is, and look, it connects us through over a whole Atlantic, which is amazing and can be used in a certain positive way. But people will become much more discerning, I think. Who says what comes from where? And I do see a return of sort to community and to connectivity. I think that the good thing is that all this exaggeration of disconnection and black versus white and Russians against Americans and Argentina against this and country left, country right, all these disconnections ultimately will lead to a tiredness of people of being disconnected, and we will look internally for connections again. I want to say, as a European who lives now for almost 20 years in the US, and that might be also a flawed perception because I'm somewhat white and blue-eyed, of course, but I've seen Americans being very kind, very helpful, and very community-based, which always impresses me, I have to say. You don't have to be in the same opinion, and you will see this in 2020 very much, and the shift will be that if we can't trust outer messages, then we have to talk to each other again. And I think that dialogue will happen and communication will happen, and because the ability to share your opinion so freely through all these social medias, which I think is a great thing, I think that is the true silver lining, I would almost say, for next year. I do have a positive feeling, I have to say, but it doesn't mean that things are going to get easy, because now we're going through a certain growing pain globally. You see, we arrived in Argentina right before the elections, and of course, people asked, us for opinion, and I said, the problem is that the old president was talking about a great future. He always said, in 20 years, Argentina will be rich and well, and in 30 years, it will be at this. And the current president talks all about the past, how wonderful it was, and we should go back to the old values. No one's talking about the now and here. Mm-hmm. And in our own country, in US, we have a representative who talks about basically a time of the 50s and 60s, and that were for him wonderful, I guess. And a lot of people say that was better. And everybody else talks about the future, but there's no one who says, let's look at the here and now. And I think that 2020 will be the beginning of the here and now. We can't just look in the past and fix it in the future, or look at a future and hope it will be better than the past. It will be a conscious decision to look at the present and how much we need to clean up now and reconnect and heal, to talk in shamanic language. Healing will be an important element. I also see a tiredness of people following advice that leads to nothing. And I always say, my biggest achievement is one day when people don't need people like me, then I have achieved my goal. And empowerment, the empowerment of people is, at least for me, one of the most important things. And it happens, I see it happening, especially in the US, where communities say, we're not going to wait for the government to tell us if we should recycle our plastic or not. just because we don't have to, we're going to do it anyway. Just because the government doesn't say, oh, listen, just go and do whatever you want, it doesn't mean we're going to go and do it. So there is definitely a common sense that will manifest more and more as the years go by. But we are in a very difficult constellation, not bad constellation, but necessary. And it's like childbirth, as a woman, you should know. It's not the most
no,
easiest
it wasn't easy, and I actually didn't like it.
But there you go, but the moment the baby's there and it's on your chest, you literally, and I know women who told me this, you forget everything that just happened to that moment. And I think this is what we're doing. We are in a birthing process of a new decade.
Yeah.
For shamans, this is all the great purification. So for us, it means that there's going to be a lot more flooding, a lot more water. California has the fires, but also we're going to have fire and water. Great purification usually is through water and fire. And so we're going to experience an acceleration of that. Water's rising, most of all. You're also going to have that feeling of we all collectively are creating our future now. It's not something that is predetermined, or we're much more in conscious control of the decision about how do we want to live our lives and how do we want the society to go. And if that's a large growing pain that will last 400 years, that's an incredible growing pain. But we are at least deciding our future now. And I think that's why this particular moment in history is important. We are much more conscious of creating that future. And I think that's an empowerment.
Well said.
I see so many things with shamanism and what's coming. Shamans are not necessarily so optimistic. They turn to nature to be optimistic. Every tree, every plant, everything is optimistic. All the animals are optimistic. Shamanism is very involved with animals and communicating with animals. But the language of birds, the language of horses. And I hope there's more of that coming. I hope there's more of a connection to the earth, because it is a crucial time that if we don't understand our bodies, the earth, our transformation, and spirit, we'll get very lost. And I think that's something we have to remember. One good thing about shamanism is they really did create ecology. They created this environmental atmosphere, and I think that is a positive contribution. Now let's see what we do with it.
Yeah.
So with that, everybody, please make sure to follow us on Instagram. Our Instagram handle's @soul_tribe_podcast. If you are listening to the podcast and you want to take a quick screenshot and tag us, that would be great, so we can see what episodes you guys are listening to. And always feel free to send us your feedback, because we love hearing from you and what you think of the episodes and the topics. And we also have a Facebook page, so make sure you go follow us there. We'll have all that information on the show notes of the episode. And we will see you next time, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in.
Thank you.